Now, we've talked about specific immune response, we've talked about nonspecific immune response, and how your nonspecific immune response runs every second of every day, and how that takes care of most of the problems. But sometimes we have to have that police department, that fire department to come in to take care of the houses that are on fire and to arrest the bad guys. And we take mug shots of these bad guys so we can remember what they look like. And these are our memory cells. And when you have memory cells, that's what it means to be immune. Well, this is what vaccines allow us to do. I mentioned vaccines start with a V, viruses start with a V. Vaccines are for viruses. They are where I give that person a weakened form of the virus. The virus will still infect you, but it's not going to make you sick. But your body doesn't know that. So your body will go through the primary immune response, and your body will figure out what antibodies will help trap and block that virus. And your body's going to take its mugshot, it's going to take its picture, so it can remember this virus in the future. And this is why you get these childhood vaccines, because children have that thymus gland. They can still make those new kinds of antibodies. But every once in a while, you have to, like I mentioned before, get these booster vaccines, because over time, viruses mutate. And if the virus mutates, it's a whole new virus. It's a virus that your body has never seen before. So when we talk about having boosters with this thing called, active immunity, it really depends on the antigen. And the antigen means, is it a virus? Is it the bacteria? Remember, antigens are proteins on the surface of those cells. And if the virus or the bacteria mutates, its antigen is going to mutate. So you don't have the proper mugshot. You don't have the proper memory cells. And so your body doesn't recognize it anymore. So it's like a brand new thing, so it will get sick. So this is why we give flu shots, for example, every year, because every year the flu virus changes. So the flu shot you got this year has a different virus in it than the flu shot you got last year. And like, for example, myself, I got the flu shot, but I still got sick with the flu because the virus had mutated within that period of time into a virus that my body did not recognize, so I got sick. And so these booster shots kind of reminds the immune system of that antigen. So like you might have had the measles shot as a child, and here I am 48 years old. The measles has changed since then. So it probably might be a smart idea for me to get a booster shot just to, kickstart my immune system and say, hey guys, don't forget, this is what this virus looks like. Okay? And others do last for a lifetime. Chickenpox does not mutate that often. And so my body is going to remember that chickenpox. And honestly, chickenpox is all around us. My body has probably come in contact with chickenpox enough to remember what it looks like. It's just I don't get sick from that virus. Now, like I said, the worst disorder I could possibly think of is if you had something wrong with your immune system. And there is something called an immunodeficiency, and it's just what the name says. When you're deficient, you are missing something. So with immunodeficiencies, these people genetically are missing part of their immune system. So it's a genetic mutation. It could be that they don't make killer T cells. So they don't have a cell-mediated immune response. Or maybe for some reason they can't make a certain antibody. So, we talk about shapes as antibodies. Maybe they can't make the triangle antibody. But for some reason, genetically, they cannot make part of their immune system. Well, the other 99% of their immune system works. And the other 99% of their immune system should be able to solve a lot of the problems. It just really depends on what part of the immune system you're deficient in. And the worst one that you can have is what's called SCID, severe combined immunodeficiency disorder. And in this case, it is a genetic mutation where these people don't make any antibodies at all. They sometimes are missing B cells, they're sometimes missing T cells, but they're missing incredibly huge chunks of their immune system. So we basically say they have no immune system. And I just want to clear that up. It doesn't mean that they have nothing. Okay? And in most severe cases, yes, they have nothing. But most of the cases of SCIDs, they are missing, like they don't make B cells. They don't make T cells. They're missing huge chunks. Like they don't have an entire police department. All they have is a fire department. And this causes severe, severe complications because their bodies cannot fight off, normal everyday pathogens that I can fight off. And so a lot of these children do die very young. And it's kind of sad because in the beginning, they're fine, happy children. Because remember, they have that passive immunity. They've got that borrowed immunity from their mom. And then all of a sudden they start getting sick. and just these common illnesses become worse and worse and worse. But many steps have been made in combating this. It's an incredibly rare disorder. You can Google it. They talk about it being the bubble boy syndrome or the bubble child syndrome. But a lot of gene therapies are being done. And again, it's rare, but it does happen. Okay. Now, immunodeficiencies is what HIV falls under. And we talked about how HIV is the human immunodeficiency virus. So it kind of makes me laugh when people say the HIV virus because the V already stands for virus. But anyway, I'm off topic. HIV causes the acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And remember, acquired means you catch it. Well, people with AIDS, they end up missing part of their immune system. So they've acquired this immunodeficiency. It's not genetic, they're not born in it. Now, HIV is believed to have been around for many years. There's lots of different theories behind HIV. One of the strongest theories is the idea that this is a primate virus, meaning it has been amongst chimpanzees and monkeys for years. And it's believed to have originated in Africa. And like I said, lots of different theories, but right now the current trend seems to be that some hunters were hunting monkeys, and when they approached a monkey that they had wounded, the monkey fought back and bit them. And the monkey had this virus in its saliva or its blood, and it got transferred into the humans and it mutated. And over time, it's had many different names. It was called GRIDS, gay-related immunodeficiency syndrome. But now, with the current epidemic, it's AIDS. But when it talks about it was discovered in 1983, that's not exactly correct. We've known about it since the 1950s. I think in the 80s is when it really hit hard and we had a lot of research done behind it. But like I mentioned before, HIV targets helper T cells, and helper T cells are your dispatchers. And so when you pick up the phone and dial 911, the dispatcher gets the information, and the dispatcher calls the police department, calls the fire department, and tells them where to go. What aid do you need? Okay, what's going on? Well, that's what helper T cells do for your body. They recognize this spike in histamine. They recognize the displays for the pathogens. And they gather the information and they say, hey, B cells, which are our police department, hey, B cells, get your weapons ready. You need to go fight off this bad guy. And they say, hey, fire department, which are your T cells, hey, these cells are infected. I need you to go and put out that fire. I need you to go and destroy those cells. Well, people with HIV, their helper T cells are being targeted. Their helper T cells are being destroyed. So if you're HIV positive, that means you have the virus in you. But people who are HIV positive, they still have enough helper T cells to initiate the immune response. But it'd be like you calling 911, and it might take an hour before a dispatcher picks up. But at least the dispatcher picked up, and at least that dispatcher got your information. But it gets to a point where your helper T cell numbers drop, this whole idea of leukopenia that we talked about before. And when your helper T cell numbers drop to the point that you can no longer fight off normal everyday diseases, stuff that we take for granted because our body kills it immediately, at that point in time, you're considered to have AIDS. And because your normal body cells are unaffected, an immune response is not launched. Okay? But when you do have a problem and these histamine levels are spiking, there's no helper T cells. So like I said, it's like your house being on fire and you're dialing 911, but nobody ever answers the phone. Now, immunodeficiency syndromes are different from allergies, which we've talked about. I mentioned how the immune system mistakenly recognizes harmless foreign particles as serious threats. These are things called allergens. So like pollen, certain chemicals, like I mentioned, I'm allergic to sulfa-based drugs, which are made from sulfur. These are not things that can destroy your cells. These aren't things that can't get into your cells and create, baby viruses and your cells explode. These aren't bacteria that can create toxic waste products that poison your cells. These are things that won't hurt you. But your immune response says, hey, something's going on. I need you to fight off this. But your cells are like, okay, but there's nothing happened to me, so there's no histamine. So these things called mast cells will turn on and start making histamines. And histamines are vasodilators. So your blood vessels get really big. And histamine also causes you to make more mucus. And that's why when you have allergies, it's like you have a cold, your nose runs, you sneeze, your eyes water. Well, that's what happens when you have a cold, because your body's trying to wash away pathogens, or you make more mucus in order to trap more pathogens. You're already sick, you don't want more stuff to come in. And so people who have severe allergic reactions, the mucosa membranes in their trachea basically swell and it blocks their breathing. Okay. And so, you've heard of drugs like Benadryl, which are antihistamines. Well, when you're having an allergic reaction, you don't want to make histamine. Your mast cells are making histamine for no reason whatsoever. So antihistamines stop histamine. So you'll stop making the water. You'll stop sneezing. You'll stop making that extra mucus. But when you're sick, you're supposed to have these things happening. So you're not supposed to take an antihistamine when you're sick, because you're supposed to have histamine. Histamine is the 911 call that your cells use to get help. So if you take an antihistamine when you're sick, it's like me taking your phone from you. You need help, but you can't call anybody. So people who take antihistamines when they're truly sick stay sick longer. Okay? You take decongestants when you're sick. When you take a decongestant, you're still making histamine, but decongestants focus on your mucous membranes, so you simply don't make as much mucus. Now, there's also these things called autoimmune disorders. Now, immunodeficiencies are genetic disorders in which you do not make a part of your immune system. So you don't make a certain antibody, you might not make B cells, something along that line. That's different from these things called autoimmune disorders. Okay? Autoimmune disorders are when your own body ignores your marker protein. Remember, your marker protein is your MHC protein. Your own body ignores this, and it starts to destroy tissues that are supposed to be there. So, you're supposed to have cartilage in between your joints, but in rheumatoid arthritis, your body destroys that cartilage. Okay? A classic example, type 1 diabetes. We mentioned how you have beta cells in your pancreas. It's supposed to make insulin. Insulin tells your liver to turn off. It says, hey, liver, keep that sugar in. The blood has enough sugar. The blood is thick enough. But people with type 1 diabetes, their own body destroys those beta cells. There's something about the beta cells that your white blood cells don't like. And so you can't make insulin, okay? But you're supposed to have it. So this is an example of an autoimmune disorder. It's where your own body destroys what's happening. For example, that's what they're trying to figure out what's going on with me. Okay? My retina is detaching, and they don't know why, but when they take blood samples, my blood cell counts show an increase in certain types of proteins that are associated with autoimmune disorders. So I'll be tested for things like lupus, Graves' disease, which I'm going to talk about on here, just different autoimmune situations. Okay. Another example is myasthenia gravis. We talked about muscles. You know that this is a picture of a synapse. Remember, synapses have hormones in them. It's like you guys are the muscle cells and you're asleep and I'm the nerve. And I have to wake you up and I shoot that ice cold water on you. And that ice cold water is a hormone called a neurotransmitter. And we talked about how muscle cells need the hormone acetylcholine to wake up. Well, there's two types of myasthenia gravis. But in the first type, your own body destroys the boutons that make acetylcholines. So basically, your muscles are there, your muscles are fine, your muscles are ready to work, there's nothing wrong with your muscles, but I can't wake your muscles up. Okay? It's like me, the nerve, trying to shoot ice cold water at you, but the hose won't turn on. Okay? So these people slowly become paralyzed because their muscles don't ever work because nothing wakes them up. Or what you're seeing in this picture is another type. These people make antibodies, remember antibodies are Ys, that block the reactor cells. Your cells have to be able to, it's like they have the antenna and the antenna receive that signal that says, hey, wake up. Well, the antibodies block that. So even though the person's making acetylcholine and is trying to wake the muscle up, the muscle never gets that information. Okay. Some more examples. Okay, so the muscles don't know to go to work. Multiple sclerosis. Okay. Well, MS is something that you've all heard of. Your nerves are like wires. They have electricity going through them. And just like all the wires in your house are insulated, your nerves are also insulated. And they're insulated with a layer of fat called myelin. That myelin is supposed to be there. You're supposed to have it. But people with multiple sclerosis, MS, their body destroys that layer of myelin. So it'd be like you taking a cord and cutting the plastic the rubber coating off of it and then plugging it in. Well, if you were to try that, and please don't, but if that ever happens, as soon as you plug it in, there's this huge spark and you would probably blow a fuse, or you would burn out the motor in that appliance, because that insulation is there to make sure we don't shock, we don't hurt other things. Well, people with MS, their own bodies destroy that myelin, and that can cause the nerves to short circuit. It's just like, burning out a motor in an appliance, or like little sparks going off and burning up the tissue around it. So people with multiple sclerosis do slowly have permanent damage to their nerves, and it can cause paralysis or problems with their muscle movement because the nerves, those cords that tell the muscles what to do aren't working anymore.